What makes for a good buyer? Now, whether you're selling a business or whether you're looking to buy a business, you either want to be a good buyer or you want to sell your business to a good buyer. So these are the 5 major attributes of what we deem, from our experience, a good buyer. So someone shows up and wants to buy a business, the first thing you have to ask them about is their interest. Now, if the story is, well, there wasn't a lot of things for sale and I really need to get something done in the next year, well, it could be an interesting pure return on capital. You want a little bit more emotion in this. You want a little bit more commitment. You want a little bit more interest of, well, we've really been interested in this particular industry, in this particular sub-industry. We really think because of the tide changes, because of the way things are moving, because of these paradigm shifts, it's going to be interesting and there's going to be lots of opportunities. Is there a story about someone's life as to why it's impacted their family, as to why it has been an important part of their life? There just needs to be something besides, oh, if I put $1 in, I can get $1.10 back. And it's not to say that that doesn't need to exist as part of it. However, there needs to be some driving factor, some level of interest, and that's what you really need to pry on for kind of initial conversations. Now, secondly, in the natural progression of that discussion is experience. So if someone says, I'm really interested because of A, B, and C, we say, well, that's intriguing. What is your experience? Do you have experience in this industry? Do you have experience with this type of business? And again, it'd be wonderful if someone said, yes, I've been working 25 years in a business that does the exact same thing and now I want to own one. However, that's not always the case, doesn't always line up that cleanly. In many instances, you'll say someone's coming out of the industry and wants to specialize more. Someone was in a similar industry. And even if not, someone had experience in businesses that had some things that resembled each other. For instance, if the business distributes certain products and someone was in distribution but it was distributing other products, well, it could still be a very good fit. There's obviously going to be idiosyncrasies or nuances about the particular industry, but many of those can be learned along the way. Similarly, let's say it's a business that deals with memberships or recurring services. Then if there's a heavy sales component and someone says, well, I have a very long track record of being very successful in sales, selling these things, then a lot of the skill sets could be applicable as well. So experience doesn't always need to line up in terms of industry. It helps if it does, but oftentimes it can be from skill sets, attributes, temperament. Just look for something that lines up if you're the seller to say, okay, the experience makes a little bit of sense here. Or if you're the buyer, pound the table about the experience so that the seller gets a feeling that you know what you're doing, or that you will know what you're doing, or that you could know what you're doing. And so that's a very important part of it. The third is a plan. So you have interest, high level, this is why it's interesting to us. You have experience, we've done these things, what makes us believe that we are capable of doing these other things in the future. And now the plan. How would you come in? How would you implement it? And obviously, with not a lot of information in front of you, you're not going to be able to make a compelling case. But generally speaking, start tying that interest level into an actionable plan. Well, your business sells these products. Given that we think the market is going to shift in this way, here's what we think we would do. We'd really want to uptick sales. We'd really want to push the product in this direction, increase its capabilities, enhance what it does for people in these ways because these are the growing needs or these are the growing desires from the customer base. But show that there's a plan. Show that you've thought a few steps ahead. There's not just the interest, again, of just buying the business and sitting there and holding on for dear life, but what is the plan moving forward? How does it grow? Because one tip to all of this is that when someone's looking to sell a business, yes, it matters that there's a full value, that the terms are good, but also no one wants to sell a business that they've been putting years and years of their life into to someone that they feel is going to fold and not make it work afterwards. Even if they have no monetary involvement or no skin in the game from a dollar's perspective post-transaction, nobody wants to hand something over that's going to fail. So give someone confidence that you have thought through the plan, both in kind of coming in and then longer term vision as well. Number 4, capability. And we don't mean this again to be reiterating experience, but this is much more driven towards nuts and bolts, financial capabilities in large part. And so, okay, you have the interest, you have the experience, you have a plan, but if you have no money or no one that will give you money to do the thing, well, then it really doesn't matter, does it? And so from a seller's perspective, they always want to make sure that before the dialogue progresses too far, that they have some semblance of source of funds, where it's coming from, who's investing with you, who's lending to you. The buyer doesn't need to have all of this cash in a backpack to hand over on the closing day, but they do have to show at least a high-level skeleton of how the capital is likely to come together. Because again, as they say, hope is not a strategy. There needs to be the actual capabilities to do the things once it is determined what things there are to do. Lastly, and the simplest one, but oftentimes an overlooked one, is follow through. There are multiple steps throughout the process of selling a business where a buyer is asked to review materials and send back follow-up questions, to sign a non-disclosure agreement, to indicate that they would like to remain in the process, to submit a high-level indication of interest, to follow through to a letter of intent, to have a phone call in between, whether it's with just us as the advisor, or the seller of the business, or management of the business. But there needs to be some follow through. If someone says, I'm very, very, very interested in something, and then we say, okay, great, send us questions by Wednesday, and then Monday we get an email saying, hey, my goldfish got the flu, I'll have it to you 4 days from now, and then 7 days later you get the actual questions, it's incongruent with the dialogue up to that point. If you really want something, then the behavior must be congruent with the desire, otherwise you lose credibility. And from a seller's perspective, and when we're representing sellers, we only represent sellers, we are evaluating that along the way. And so if we say, hey, send us an email with your favorite flavor of ice cream, there are going to be those that answer. There's going to be those that send back an email saying, hey, that's a stupid question. And that's fine, as long as there's some level of responsiveness, as long as there's some level of follow through, as long as there's some level that we get the feeling that someone's paying attention, that they're locked in just as much as our seller's locked into the process. Because wasting money is one thing, wasting time can often be even worse. And we will avoid that like the plague in any exercise we undertake. And so when someone then comes out of the woodwork a week before offers are supposed to come in, and they say, hey, you know what, I really wanted this thing, I was going to do it, but all this stuff happened, and now can I do it? Please, please, please. Oftentimes the answer is no, we're just too far down the track. Or even if you could get back into the process, the price has gone up, not even explicitly, but implicitly, because there's a lack of trust that you are actually going to perform in the things you do. So sometimes it's just the simple things, the follow through, answering the emails, answering the phone calls, having the discussions, asking the questions. If there's a level of discernible interest and commitment to the process and respect of the process, then that respect is certainly reciprocated by the seller, by us, in following through towards ultimately offers and a closed deal. And so, what makes a good buyer? Whether you're selling a business or buying a business, these 5 attributes: interest, experience, a plan, capability, and follow through. If you want to buy a business and you can show these 5 things, you will instill a great deal of confidence in the seller. And we, representing the sellers and working with the sellers, and if you are a seller and you see these 5 things and you can give someone a high score on these 5 elements, you can be fairly confident they are a good buyer. So that's the thought for today. Hope the week's off to a good start for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. See you next time.